I'm a checklist person. I
Mm.
function with checklists. I call it my ta-da list. I don't call it my to-do list because that feels
Ta-da!
a little
I
just
love
a little
that.
wonky. So ta-da, I got one done, right? So I create daily and weekly ta-da lists, and now I'm working my way into monthly also. So I set goals for the month and then
Mhm.
work my way backwards. What does that mean? What does that look like each week in order to be able to complete those goals so that I reach my end goal? So I work my way backwards from monthly goals to weekly goals to daily goals in order to be productive. And those checklists are absolutely essential. But in addition to the checklist, I use my calendar. Oh, you can't see the phone with this backdrop. This backdrop is a little tricky. But I
But
use
yes, the
the calendar on
calendar.
my phone. I put almost everything in there. Sometimes I set alerts, if I need reminders. And it's really just a matter of creating daily habits. In
Mhm.
this industry, it is very tricky because we work on call most of the time. So sometimes my activities that I have planned for the day or the week can be affected, by my schedule that's ever evolving.
Mm.
And so if there's a day that I have scheduled for marketing, emails, whatever it is, admin wise, but I'm on set, then I just have to kind of reshift my schedule for that week to make sure I still get my goals done.
The one and only Jennifer Rosario de Casiano. Thank you so much for being on the show. It is a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Melissa. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm so excited to be a part of what you're doing.
Absolutely. So, obviously, I just want to lead them right into the current project. We see it in the backdrop. Talk to us about the booking actor, what can people come to expect when they subscribe to your channel and kind of listen to the podcast?
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, I am an actress. I've been in the entertainment industry, working in the entertainment industry for 27 years now. So I started with acting and modeling, and then I quickly went into production. So I went to film school and just got bit by the bug on every front. And so I went to film school. I worked in production for a good solid 10 years. And then simultaneously, I started doing some work in front of the camera also. And I just loved acting so much that I went back to school to learn how to be an actor, took tons of classes and workshops. And so I've been doing that for, I don't even know, 15 years, I guess. And I've done probably hundreds of commercials at this point, been in a few feature films, short films, a lot of spokesperson work. And I just love what I do, everything from production to talent work. And over the years, especially the last few years, I've received so many phone calls and text messages and emails of people asking me how to get into the business or how to do a self
Hmm.
tape, just so many how to questions. And I'm always happy to help people. I didn't really know anybody when I got into the industry, so I had to learn everything the hard way. It took me a long time, to get through the trial and error process, and it's still an ongoing thing with certain areas. But I love to have the opportunity to help people just cut all of that out and get straight to business. But what happened was I had so many people asking me for help that I was having trouble keeping up with all of them on a one-on-one basis. So even though I love to do it, it was just getting a little difficult because I am still a working actor, so I have a very busy schedule. And so I went to this convention last year that talked about creating these online platforms for, to be able to teach people what your skills are. And that's something that I had thought about doing, but I wasn't sure how to go about. And
Hmm.
so I signed up for the program. I hired some coaches, and for the last year, I've had coaching sessions, teaching me how to develop this program because it really was a whole new skill set, to
Yeah.
basically develop an online school. And so
Yes.
I have this blueprint I've been following for a year. And of course, I've had to learn their software system to be able to create the courses. And that's what I've been doing. I've been creating courses that pretty much address these pain points that actors have brought to me. And so in the booking actor, they'll basically learn how to navigate the industry. It's not an acting school. So that's one of the popular questions I get. Is the booking actor an acting school? And the answer is no. I'm not teaching you acting classes. I do teach acting classes at the Maley School over in Orlando once in a while. But this program is to teach you what your next steps are after you've gotten your acting training or during the acting training process. I'll teach you how to get an agent, how to behave at the casting sessions, how to do a self-tape, industry terminology, things like that. So it's really focused on the industry itself and operating as an entrepreneur.
Very, very cool. Now, actually, I'm glad you shared kind of the nuts and bolts of the program. Like some of that I can actually kind of pull into our conversation today, because of course we combat procrastination on this channel. Like we trying to fight it at the highest level.
Yes.
So I mean, especially for someone like you who is busy, you are always going, 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 going. What are some of the tools that you use to stay productive as an actor? Because you do have to keep track of your different casting calls. There's several of them. You're doing multiple ones, and sometimes in different locations. Sometimes you're doing one in the state of Florida. You might have to leave Florida once in a while. You might have to go to Georgia. You might have to, travel out of state. And of course, even in Florida, y'all, in case you haven't seen the map, Florida is a very long state. So you can have casting calls in different parts of Florida as well. So, I mean, kind of talk about how you remain productive in what you're doing as well.
Yes, it's so true. I think it's next week. I have to be like in 3 different cities,
See?
back to back. So it's a lot of coordinating. And, I'm a checklist person. I
Mm.
function with checklists. I call it my ta-da list. I don't call it my to-do list because that feels
Ta-da!
a little
I
feels
love
a little
that.
daunting. So ta-da, I got one done, right? So I
Love it.
create daily and weekly ta-da lists, and now I'm working my way into monthly also. So I set goals for the month and then
Mhm.
work my way backwards. What does that mean? What does that look like each week in order to be able to complete those goals so that I reach my end goal? So I work my way backwards from monthly goals to weekly goals to daily goals in order to be productive. And those checklists are absolutely essential. But in addition to the checklist, I use my calendar. Oh, you can't see the phone with this backdrop. This backdrop's a little tricky. But I
But
use
yes, the
the calendar of
calendar.
my phone. I put almost everything in there. Sometimes I set alerts, if I need reminders. And it's really just a matter of creating daily habits. In
Mhm.
this industry, it is very tricky because we work on call most of the time. So sometimes my activities that I have planned for the day or the week can be affected, by my schedule that's ever evolving.
Mm.
And so if there's a day that I have scheduled for marketing, emails, whatever it is, admin wise, but I'm on set, then I just have to kind of reshift my schedule for that week to make sure I still get my goals done. So whether that means I work harder the next day, a few hours earlier, a few hours later, whatever it is, I really am very driven. So I push myself to accomplish those goals, no matter what kind of shape shifting my schedule does that week.
Got you. Got you. There's a lot to unpack even in that. One of the episodes I had done was, different tools that people can use to create their lists, whether they choose to work in the time block style, because some folks, and like even myself, like I work in time blocks. Because previously I had a to do, I didn't do the da part. But I saw that a lot of the tasks were still not necessarily being done because there weren't necessarily deadlines or like time frames attached to them. But I found that once I was doing them in like hourly blocks, since I had a time associated with it, like it helped me like get
Yes,
it done.
time blocking is a great tool, and I have
Yeah,
used time blocking quite a bit. It is a little challenging when you have an on-call schedule.
true.
So I've had times where time blocking just goes out the window,
That's
and I've
true.
had to report back to my checklist, which gives me a little more flexibility,
Hmm.
when to do that. But if, if you have the ability and the time and a more consistent schedule, time blocking is really the way to go. I love it. And, I've done time blocking on my virtual calendar,
Mhm.
but I still like tangible planners. So actually in my Amazon cart right now is a planner, which I haven't used
Oh.
in a long time. But then I find that I have like papers scattered everywhere. And I said, you know what? It's too hard to keep track of all these papers. And then sometimes, I'll put it in the calendar and I might press the wrong day or the wrong time, or it gets so cluttered that it's a little harder for me to keep track of in the phone sometimes. So just
Ah,
yesterday, I said, you know what? I'm going back to a planner. I'll still use my calendar, but I like to have that tangible planner where I can read it, erase, make my check marks in there, make my notes in there. And it does something to your brain also. When you write something down, it strengthens your connection to that task and your
correct.
memory, that's associated with that also, versus, typing it into a computer or a cell phone. It just doesn't have that same mental connection that keeps you accountable to
Very
that
true.
task.
Very true. Um, so kind of talk about the moments where, because you are very busy, but like, is there ever a moment where you kind of feel like, man, I'm exhausted. Can I like just take a break? Like, do you ever feel like tempted to procrastinate? And if so, how do you like push past it to get the tasks done?
I do. I mean, procrastination is a normal temptation, I think, for everyone, especially if you feel exhausted. And, you know, I I have such a busy schedule that I'm noticing that by the end of Sunday or even Sunday morning, I'm just so drained from the week that instead of taking Sunday off, I mean, I dedicate Sunday to church and faith and family and stuff like that, but I'm not getting enough rest over the weekends because I'm still so busy with family and house chores and stuff like that, that I've been starting to take off Mondays for
Mm,
rest if I
mhm.
can. If I'm not, booked on something, then I try to reserve Mondays lately to be able to rest, because we do need that time to refuel, recharge, and, get that motivation level up again. And because I do use my checklist so often, if I have not been able to do something either due to procrastination, which is not really a big problem for me, but mostly because of a schedule change, if it doesn't have a check mark next to it, I know I haven't done it and I know I have to go back before I can go forward, just to make sure that I'm keeping up with those tasks to be able to reach the goals. But yeah, procrastination, it's I know it's very common for a lot of people. I think what I probably procrastinate the most on are is my mail. My bills, because most of that is done online. And so I
True.
know, between the first and the fourth of the month, I just have to go online. I tap a few buttons, pay all my bills. So that's not bad. I never get behind on those. But the mail, I do tend to procrastinate on because it's just not at the top of my list of priorities. And so I do have to remind myself to do that, when I see the piles stack up. But work-wise, no, I don't procrastinate too much. I just love what I do, and I like to be busy. And uh, if you want to be successful, you've got to stay on track and be focused.
Very true. Very true. So kind of talk about what you feel is has been the most rewarding part of your acting career, because you are a veteran, like in all caps, y'all. Y'all heard the time frame.
Thank you so much.
Veteran. Yeah. So I mean, what has been the most rewarding part of the of your career? Do you feel that this new program is part of that? Kind of talk about the most significant part for you.
It's a two-part answer. So the first thing that I find most rewarding is that I have found some success. And while I haven't reached my ultimate goals, and I'm still working on those, and I think for my whole life, I'll be working on bigger goals, right? But, I grew up in the Bronx, New York. And for kids, inner city kids, they're just not exposed to many opportunities, and they just don't know what they don't know. They don't know what life is like outside of, being an inner city kid. And I was very underprivileged. And so I learned at a young age, or at least I thought that great things were for other people. And when
Mhm.
I reached a point where I decided I wanted to be an actress, which really wasn't at college, it was the level of college. I mean, I started modeling when I was younger, but everybody in the community would tell me, well, that's not for people like us. We don't do those kind of things. You could never be successful. You're crazy. You're going to be broke, and, you're going to waste your life. And they planted those seeds of doubt and fear, and so, of course, I was scared to do it. But I did have one relative. Unfortunately, he passed away this year. But I had one relative, he was an uncle of mine, who was just the most positive and encouraging person. And, he'd have those reality check conversations with me and ask me, Jenny, what makes you happy?
Mm,
And I said, oh, well, I love entertainment. I love production. I love acting. And he said, well, then pursue it. Who cares what everybody says? Just go for it. And that voice of confidence, motivation, really pushed me to explore it despite all the negative things that people spoke into my life. And so being able to overcome that and prove to so many people that it is possible, that a poor girl from the Bronx could, you know, be an actress and be in commercials, be on TV and travel and get paid for it is possible. So it's really a mindset that I had to overcome. And that's been the most rewarding thing for me, because now I get to pay it back. And through this program, I get to show other actors, aspiring actors, and even struggling actors that it is possible. But one of the things I talk about in my 7 tools every actor needs in their tool chest is a positive mindset. Because without that, nothing is going to be possible. And so I forget whose quote it is, but there's a quote that says, if you think you can, you will. If you think you can't, you won't. Either way, you're right.
Henry Ford.
Henry Ford, there you go. How do I forget that? Henry Ford. Yeah. So whatever you think is what will manifest. Either you're right, exactly.
That's powerful. That's powerful. That actually harkens back to episode 1 on this show, where I basically, it was kind of a reality check moment as well for anybody that's watching that has their thing that they're sitting on. I called it a luxury item, because you yourself are a luxury item. The idea that is attached to you is a luxury item. So the
Right.
key is to change the mindset to look at it that way. You know what I mean? And then once you see it as precious to you, then you'll do whatever it takes to take care of it or bring it to fruition. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I especially love when I get to share this message with teenagers. I
Yes.
do mentoring with at-risk youth, and their lifestyles are similar to what mine was when I was a kid. And I think that allows them to relate to me. We can relate to each other and build that connection. And they're just blown away when I say, "Hey, I don't care where you come from. I don't care what your problems are. I've been there, done that. You can be successful." And I'm
Mm.
that voice of encouragement for a lot of them. And they tell me, Miss Rosario, I've never heard anything like this in my entire life. You're the first person that told me I could go to college, I could be successful, I'm smart. And that just brings me so much joy to be able to plant those seeds into young people, whether they're going into acting or not. So aside from acting, I love doing motivational coaching as well.
So talk a little bit about the mentoring part, because like I briefly was made aware of it. I want to say like a few months ago, and I was like, "You're doing that too?" So
Mhm.
like, tell our audience about like the mentoring that you're doing and how that's been helping you grow as a person.
Last year, I received a phone call from a principal of a high school. And that high school was very unique. It's a charter school designed for at-risk youth. So they were students that either failed out of a regular high school or dropped out, for many different reasons. I know COVID affected a lot of them and set them back. Some of them were getting in trouble with the law. Some have severe social anxiety and couldn't function in a large school setting. And others, either they were developmentally delayed or they just didn't get the proper education from the start. So, there were seniors with fourth grade reading levels, which was
Mhm.
making it very difficult for them to complete the work that they were expected to complete and to be able to read and comprehend at the level that they're supposed to be at. So unfortunately, the system had pushed a lot of these kids through and they were not at the level they were supposed to be. So this principal called me and said, "Hey, I'd like you, to come and work with our students." And I said, I didn't apply to do this. And he says, "No, but I found your information online and I think you're, a great person for this." And I said, "Well,
Wow.
I'm an actress, right?" And I do have my certifications to teach English up to ninth grade and also
Wow.
business because I do have degrees in business. I have a bachelor's and a master's degree in business. So I said, you know what? This sounds so amazing. I'd love to come and tour the school. And I toured the school, and unfortunately, a lot of the staff there is just kind of like a revolving door. They get scared and run away. And I understand it's a difficult environment, especially if you can't relate to the students. But when I got there, to be honest, they looked like a group of misfits. And to me, it was just like, ooh, they're perfect. It's so perfect. And the principal's like, "That's why I love you because you just think out of the box. And I had a heart-to-heart talk with them. I said, "Listen, I was very much like these kids, and, if you have a kid that's flourishing already, that's a beautiful thing, but there's only so much you can teach them, right? But if you have someone who's struggling and really needs a lifestyle change, that's where you're going to see the most growth. And that's where the true rewards are." So when I saw these kids, I just saw so much potential. And I said,
Mhm.
these are the kids that I need to work with. And so last year, I really dedicated a lot of time to these students. And, it was very time consuming and it was very emotional because they do have a lot of problems at home, and so I spent a lot of time crying, I'll be honest. But, it allowed me to be very compassionate and understanding with the kids. And so, several times a week, I was giving them motivational speeches and talking to them about, being that flower that grows in the middle of the desert, just like blooming where you're planted, really, it was
Mhm.
the topic, and changing their mindsets and understanding that just because maybe their family and friends told them they were stupid, that doesn't mean it's true, you know? And so I spent a lot of time getting into their heads, like trying to change their mindsets and teaching them how to set goals. And I can be very honest, like these kids like to wear pajamas. And I'm not afraid to say, "You look like a bum. You look like a total slop. This is unacceptable. Grow up and get some nice clothes on. You can go to the Goodwill." In fact, I started like a drive and I started collecting clothes of all different sizes and bringing them to the school to set up a dress for success closet at the school. And the kids
Awesome.
just loved it. They really loved it. And for me, it's so rewarding. This year I haven't done as much. I've been very busy, but there are still several of the students that I keep in contact with and, continue to motivate them. One girl I even had the opportunity to coach through her labor.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, she was, a young teenage mom, young pregnant teenager. And I did encourage her to keep the baby and connected her with some resources. But I mean, the day she went into labor, she's texting me, "Miss R, it's happening now, help." And I'm like, "Okay, breathe." You know, it was
Wow.
amazing. It's really a blessing.
That is beautiful. That is beautiful.
Yeah, it was so crazy. I was actually at a wedding when she went into labor. And so at one point I just had
Oh,
to
wow.
call and say, I'm sorry, but I have a student that needs me right now. I'll be back, you know?
And it is the holiday season, guys, so be sure to check out the merch shop. If you are curious about the shirt, you want one for yourself, you can go to gettingthewingear.com. That way you'll see this shirt, you'll see a bunch of other accessories as well. We've got hoodies, we've got sweats, we've got all the gifts that you could possibly want to buy for yourself and for your folks to get the message out about being as productive as possible and staying true to yourself. Because the mission of this show is to turn procrastinators into producers. That's why I always task you guys to hashtag get on that and make sure you're on top of your luxury item. And that way you can rock the gear to remind the world that you are all about that luxury item. You are all about getting things done, getting the goals instead of simply setting them.